Well, that was a swift kick in the junk, was it not? Your Miami Heat lose to the Philadelphia 76ers 109-105, and I believe it was Terry Rozier who described this after the game as a devastating loss to your Miami Heat. Drops them to 42-34 on the season. Philadelphia now a half game back at you. They got an easy peasy schedule the rest of the way. So, look, this was a big game. We talked about the magnitude of it. We talked about earlier, today on the radio show. And we talked about this on the channel. It's just that, look, it was all here right in front of the Miami Heat, and it just seems like any time it's so interesting with this team, man, because it does feel like they just never want to keep things on the path that seem like it's going good. And I mean that by wins, by injuries, by scoring mother bleeping points. It's just like you really have to just take them all the way to the brink of desperation before you can wake their ass up and get them going. And, this was a fun game today because it had a lot of crazy runs. It had some crazy turnarounds, but also you're thinking to yourself immediately with the Miami Heat knowing everything that they have on the line for this game, how in God's name do you start a game off down 17-2? And it basically takes you getting a crazy, crazy torrid performance by Highsmith to wake your asses up and get yourself back in this game. And I cannot say enough about the energy, the effort that dude played with. His back-to-back plays, stealing inbounds and causing turnovers to get Miami back into this game was just absolutely tremendous. And then in the second quarter, was blowing by Joel Embiid for reverse layups. The dude was just absolutely unconscious. Him and Kevin Love hooking up for a dunk. And then Miami, would come all the way back down from where they were to get the lead in the second quarter, 46-43. Highsmith's flexing. He's walking off the court. And then just the scoring, it just goes bone dry. They can't do anything. And that was a theme, I think 3 times tonight. Miami had stretches of like over 5 minutes without a field goal make. It was crazy. And look, I do want to say on the front end of this recap, one, Tyrese Maxey was a baller tonight. That dude was hitting every shot. The Heat throwing a lot of guys at it. He was shaking everybody out of their shoes. He was awesome for them. So Tyrese Maxey, big time performance from him with everything he had on the line. The shot making he had was absolutely amazing. And then Joel Embiid, interestingly enough, his comfort zone today was with the jumper. It really wasn't being physical in the paint. He was also just very, very comfortable with his jump shot. I imagine that's coming with a lot of, one-on-one drills and doing nothing but shooting for all these weeks while he's waiting. But those two guys, their shot making was really impressive, particularly for both of them in the first half. But for Maxey, mostly the whole game. But Joel, he had a hell of a start. And my first big reason for Miami being where they were at in this game, Bam Adebayo played just such a horse first half. He played terrible. And I don't know what the hell that was, because this is not a matchup he's typically bad at. He usually, handles the elite bigs and goes at him and gets physical with him. And I don't know if it was because it wasn't that physical a matchup with Joel Embiid early on. It was like a lot of dealing with Joel Embiid's jump shot, and Tyrese Maxey getting switched out, and these guys were just making tough shots, and so he didn't feel his impact on the game that much. But it did affect him on the other side, because the dude, was so tight on all of his jump shots and had no touch, and basically really didn't get going until he had a bucket in the Heat made a late run at the end of halftime where they go on a 6-0 run. Bam finally, has Embiid guarding him out on the wing. He did make a three tonight off the glass and puts his head down, cut the Heat, their deficit down to 13. Then Haywood Highsmith got a bucket, and then Terry Rozier got a steal, and then, doing what he does, gets the big-time buzzer beater. I haven't seen a guy like this hit buzzer beaters, non-game ending, quarter-ending buzzer beaters like this since Goran Dragic. That used to be, he was the king of that. But Terry Rozier seems like he's taking the crown. So Miami goes into halftime. They're down 8 after everything really seizing up on them in that second quarter, in that run, basically until there was 45 seconds left and they go on another run. And Spo mentioned this was a game of runs, but it was just really frustrating that this kept happening to Miami. That would just be, you would think in your building, everybody jumping and vibing the way that they were, a Sixers team that looked like they're ready to wilt. They had a Joel Embiid who was damn exhausted in the second half of this game. And to not be able to put it away was very disappointing. Jimmy, pretty quiet first half. The trio that really worked for Jimmy tonight, where he played his best, him, Kevin Love, Jaime Jaquez Jr., whatever two other pieces that were there. Typically, Caleb Martin's probably in there too. But those three as a trio today, I mean, that was your best combination of stuff. Kevin Love was just absolutely incredible. 19 minutes, 16 rebounds, played balls to the wall. And really, you think the thing that sucks about an effort like tonight, you got really, really good role performances from Kevin Love. Haywood Highsmith really turned the game on its head. Jaime Jaquez, I thought, played his best basketball in a while. But I did feel like the one thing I would say, if I could have a criticism, I just felt like Eric Spoelstra rode that horse a little bit too long today. And I'll tell you what I mean by that is, like, they had another incredible run in the third quarter where they put Miami back on top, where, Jimmy misses a jumper, missed a lot of them today. Love got a rebound, throws it to Jaquez, who gets that nice little paint bucket. Then you had Jaime get an interception, kicks it to Rozier in the corner. Jimmy then had a nice little putback. He was playing with energy. And then there was the play that really, I thought, when they got this play, I was like, oh, there's no way they're going to let up after this. And Joel Embiid had this falling. He's whining for a call. Love finds, he kicks it out, gets it to Caleb, and I think Caleb finds Jimmy under the basket. There's two guys on him, slam dunk, gets the foul, gives Miami the lead. And I'm like, oh, this should be where they get this going. And I will also say, in this third quarter, I thought Bam Adebayo played a much better brand of basketball. He was playing physical with Joel Embiid. He was really wrestling with Joel Embiid. There was a couple times I thought Joel Embiid wasn't going to get up. And I don't know if it was the brace bothering him or what, but Bam was getting some buckets. He was finally looking like he was engaged on defense with the physicality he was playing with. So Miami, I thought, in the third quarter played their best brand of basketball that, and it was the quarter they won by the most amount of points. But then the fourth quarter came, and Miami gets into this fourth quarter, and they're still rolling. They come out of it with Jimmy, Caleb, Kevin Love, Jaime Jaquez, and Haywood Highsmith, and starts off decent. You get a nice little run to go with this thing. There were a couple loose balls that made things wonky, and it just felt like, man, every time you gave Philadelphia a second chance at something, bang, Maxey was there hitting a three, or Campaign, or Kelly Oubre. So they get this play where Jaime misses a three, but Love man's man rebound, puts it back, puts the Heat up 99-93. Kevin Love's bleeding all over the place, bleeding on the head. He's bleeding on his arm. They're wrapping him up. There's 7:42 left, right? And at this point, this unit had played a while together. They'd been getting really positive results. It was at this point I was like, maybe it's starting to run out of juice a little bit, right? So they keep going. There's no buckets, but there's a little bit of fouls going back and forth. Jimmy's going to the line. Jaime went to the line. They showed Luis Suarez on the Jumbotron. He got a nice little pop. Also, by the way, Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb were there. Did not see them walk, so I don't know how that's going on it, but it was cool to see them. Got a very nice pop. But in this time, Miami's going through another one of those droughts, right? And I'm sitting here and I'm wondering, the Heat get a point. KJ Martin gets a bucket that makes it 102-98. And Spo calls timeout. Things were getting a little bit wild. Like Jaime Jaquez was like throwing the ball and, was getting, some things were just getting out of control for Miami. And I just thought that unit had kind of run its course. And Spo felt like he was trying to squeeze every drop out of Highsmith and Love because those guys honestly were bringing the most energy today. But I thought that was a point where I was like, man, we're not, and Joel Embiid's on the bench at this point. I was like, man, you're not going to bring Bam back in? Like, we're just going to keep sitting him? And then he comes out of the timeout. He puts Terry in and still no Bam. And he goes out. Terry misses a couple shots. At this point, Philly is able to get to the lead because Kelly Oubre, he gets a couple back-to-back buckets, including a 3 to go ahead. Miami calls timeout again, and there's about 3.5 minutes left in the game. Joel Embiid's about to come back in, and then they put Bam back in. And I'm just saying, man, like, look, Bam did not have a good first half, but I thought this third quarter was coming around. Kevin Love is coming back from this heel injury. He had given you everything there was to give. Jaime was playing the best basketball he had in a while, but I just felt like it kind of had run its course. And so I'm never the guy who questions Eric Spoelstra's rotations or substitutions because he's Eric Spoelstra, but I kind of thought he blew this one tonight. I thought the way that I just thought his feel for when to switch things, when you have that many droughts going in a game, and yeah, some of it was inflicted by Bam had a big hand in it in the first half for sure, but in the second half, I would have gone back to him, and I would have gone back to him earlier than 3 minutes left in the game. So you basically sat Bam an entire quarter. You sat him from the 2 minutes left in the third quarter to 3 minutes left in the fourth. Very strange. I didn't understand that. And especially bringing him back and not, you brought Terry back in a few minutes earlier. Nothing happened with it. I don't know. I was fully expecting it to go back to Bam and to Terry. And the other thing was Jimmy, a lot to be made about Jimmy today, his performance. I thought Jimmy had some really good moments for the Heat, but this fourth quarter, he clearly wore down and maybe could have used in that Terry Rozier substitution. He could have used a blow because they were going to bring in Joel Embiid for the last stretch run. And so you could just see at the end of it, there were a couple of buckets where Jimmy is going down to the is going down to the paint. Joel Embiid's there. Joel Embiid swallowed him up a couple of times, and he didn't have that. So when everybody's going to sit here and they're going to talk about Jimmy Butler and the shot that he takes at the end of this game, he might as well have. I mean, his jumper wasn't on tonight, but they weren't calling anything. There was a very, very physical game. To be fair to the refs, they were calling it on both sides, but I just thought that there should have been maybe a little bit of a breather there for Jimmy. Especially front end of a back-to-back. You had him play 40 minutes in this one. I don't know. I thought Spo had a hand in it. I'm not giving him the most of the blame pie. I'd say the The guy deserving of the most blame tonight, Bam, because he had a no-show in the first half and probably had influence on why Spo rode Kevin Love so hard in this one. 2, it's got to go to Jimmy because just didn't do enough in the fourth quarter for Miami. And then 3, I think should go to the coach. Terry Rozier hits a sick-ass fall-away 3 again in that patented Terry Rozier spot with 39 seconds left. He gives you the big 3 to go down by 2, get exactly what you need. You get your look there at the end. I by the way, I had a really good look at this too. I didn't think it was going in, the Terry Rozier shot. I was like, that's not going in. But the Jimmy shot, that I was like immediately, I was like, oh, that has no shot. That is no prayer. But I kind of felt that way. Like every Jimmy jumper tonight, I was like, that is no prayer. So yeah, it's a brutal loss for Miami, man. It's a brutal loss. It puts them in a tough spot in the standings tonight. They got thoroughly their stars got thoroughly outplayed today. And that was disappointing. You have Kyle Lowry he's undefeated now against the Miami Heat in his efforts. So that was the other thing too. Like, Kyle would end up on Jimmy and he was like doing all that annoying Kyle Lowry. I'm like, come on, Jimmy, it's Kyle Lowry, dude. Like, go bully this guy and stop messing around. And he had moments, but certainly the refs were not giving him every call tonight. And they were not. They had a pretty stringent whistle tonight. They were not calling everything. So right now, after this loss, as things stand, the Miami Heat are back in the play-in. They're 7th. They are 42-34. Half game back of Indiana, who they will play on Sunday. They have the Rockets coming up later on tonight. There is big news regarding Tyler Hero in that game. I'm going to do another video to discuss that. And we'll get into that, but I wanted to just do one on this game. The game, look, I think Terry Rozier's right. It was devastating because of what was on the line here. I think you had a pretty somber Heat locker room today. I think they really wanted this one. It was a wild game. It was not your typical game. It was in the Heat in the half court just couldn't do diddly squat. It was a lot of forcing turnovers, getting out on the run, second chance points, all that. It was a lot of energy and effort. But the idea that, man, you had these lulls all over the place that you had to go to that was fairly annoying. So anyway, the Sixers now are a half game behind you, and this is an important weekend ahead. Miami goes on a 3-game trip now. They have Rockets, Indiana on Sunday, and I believe the Hawks on Tuesday before closing out with 3 at home against the Mavericks and 2 against the Raptors. So we'll see how this all shakes out. It appears Tyler Hero is going on the road trip, that's for sure, but it may be that he is making his debut Friday night against Houston. So we will get into that on Tyler Hero's return coming on up. But as far as this one, painful.